All right, everybody, welcome to She's Not Wrong, the podcast that I was supposed to be a part of.
8 years in the making, I finally got you to say it.
Hi.
Hi, Mallory. This is so weird.
Why?
Because I have had two in-person interviews, and you were my first one, and it was virtual. And so this was like a dream come true. And when you said that you would do this one in person, I was very ecstatic. So thank you.
I'm happy to be here in the ham.
I'm happy to have
Pepper
you.
and I are both just thrilled.
Now, where...
She's a little crazy. She'll probably come in and out, but here we are.
And there she goes.
Yeah, bye.
Where are you headed to?
I am actually headed home. I'm from Opelika, Alabama, for folks who don't know, and I have a baby shower this weekend. So I'm going to celebrate this little nugget that's well on his way.
I know mom brain is probably horrible for you right now, or pregnancy brain at this point, but I don't know what's going on. I don't remember shit.
You can't remember anything?
No,
I understand.
We just had...
I think it's a combination. I do have pregnancy brain, but I learned it very early on. Like, it started for me almost immediately, and I was like, oh, this is a real thing. So I have to make a lot of lists. But I also think it has to do with the onslaught of information and just constant bad news that we are experiencing. No human beings are supposed to be living in the world the way that we are. And so I think it's, it makes sense. If you're struggling to keep up with what's going on. Personally, professionally, politically, it's fine.
Now that you say that, it almost feels like a trauma response. Mm-hmm. Kind of like my brain. It's actually so bad that my brain is trying to like purposely block out stuff. But it's also filtering out the important stuff, like the name of the documentary that we were just talking about that I watched last week. And so I'm going to bring this up to start the episode because Mallory, was it a TikTok? Was it an Instagram? I think you made a TikTok about the mom and you said you were going to throw hands, and I commented on her TikTok. I told her that one of the reasons why I adore her so deeply is because she's not afraid to throw a hand. And if you know Mallory, you know that she genuinely is not afraid to throw a hand.
No, like literally or figuratively.
And so there is a Netflix documentary, Unknown Number, the high school catfish. And I just wanted to talk about that for a minute because I'm not over it. I want to know what you would act like if you ever met the mom who, spoiler alert, she was the catfish. What would you say to her?
Oh, I don't know that I would interact with her.
Really?
Yeah. No. Listen. Okay, so I host a podcast, co-host a podcast, Pretty Furious, and we just recorded an episode on this. So like my lengthy thoughts on this whole documentary are out there. However, the mom is clinically unwell. Yep. Like, this woman is layers and layers and layers of unwell. And I think that if I ever ran into her, I wouldn't even want to be breathing the same air. She is a horrendous human being.
I think you said it perfectly in your TikTok that you posted. If I just found out that my mom did something so horrible for years, she was trying to console me.
Yeah, one of us would leave with a black eye.
Oh my God.
It would be her.
Yes.
Like, what?
There's no way that I would not, like you said, go to jail after that interaction.
Something. But there was a police officer there. That was part of when you're watching it, and when the police officer's there and he's telling Lauren, we figured out that it's your mom. I would be like, somebody hide their guns.
That's why I would have gone to jail, because the police officer would have seen all of it and there would have been no court case because I would have been...
Yeah, we would have just been like, guilty. I'm guilty.
Yes. There was something I saw online about the dad, and it was, again, memory so bad, I cannot remember where I saw it, but it was a lengthy theory that the dad and the daughter knew all along.
I've seen that. I've seen that they were helping the police and had suspicions that she was guilty.
Yeah, because again, the dad was really only mad about the lie about the job. Nothing else.
That's true. When you watch it, his reaction about her work was far greater than the reaction about him being the person texting Lauren. And maybe that's why Lauren looked so disassociated, because she looked kind of just like, you know, I'm here. I don't know. Interesting.
I just think he had some kind of knowledge, because he was not shocked at all about the news that his daughter's stalker for years
Was her own mom.
was her own mom. But he was mad about the job. That's the only thing he couldn't get off of. But then again, we don't know where he falls on the political spectrum. So,
well,
I mean,
I don't know.
how does he feel about women?
I'm mad that I didn't get the satisfaction of watching it in real time and learning that while I was watching the documentary. I knew who it was before I started because of TikTok.
I knew who it was too. I had no context. It wasn't TikTok for me. It was an Instagram story. Someone had a photo of the mom's face next to Quasimodo. Yeah. And I had no idea what it was from or why, but I knew that they were making a meme out of this woman. And once we got to the documentary, or once we went to Netflix, watched it, and she came up, I was like, yeah, she's it. So I tried to convince Taylor that I have a suspicion it's her. And then he found out that I found out from social media. Yeah. So he was like,
as you're watching a documentary about a woman who's pathologically lying.
Exactly. And he's like, you are insane for trying to make me believe that you had this hunch. And I was like, I was going to tell you, but
well, poor Taylor.
I don't feel bad. Anywho, okay. So the reason why Mallory is here today is because we have a conversation that we want to talk about as it regards or relates to the state of the Democratic Party in Alabama, but not just Alabama, and nationally, what we can do nationally in every state in our local communities, no matter where you're from, on how we can organize and be involved and make sure that we are having strong primaries to ensure that we have the best candidates running for office. And not only are they the best candidates, but they're capable of fundraising, they're capable of having name recognition. So we're going to have this conversation, but we're going to kind of use Alabama as our example, but don't get so, if you're listening in Montana, don't get so focused on, the fact that we're using Alabama as our example, because there are takeaways that can be applied to your local, communities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This all got started because I was posting on TikTok about, Tommy Tuberville, and there were just a lot of people in my comment section who were making decisions on who they want to be the next governor, even Republican and Democrat, making decisions on who they want to be governor a year before we have even had our primaries.
Yeah, not everyone's even qualified.
No, and there's no questions about qualifications. There's no questions about policy and having debates to make sure that we fully understand how a candidate feels on a certain issue. It's just people are already jumping to conclusion that this is who they want. And it was multiple people, which is how this podcast idea came to be. We thought we needed to talk about this.
Yeah. Do people know how we met?
I don't think so. Do you remember how we met?
Well, we actually met via Twitter.
Yep.
I guess, do people know how we became close friends?
I don't think so. No, we didn't explain that in the first time you were on.
So I ran for Congress in Alabama's 3rd Congressional District in 2018. And Chad and I had met, I think the year before.
Mm-hmm.
We met for brunch.
2017.
Off of Twitter. And essentially, the short version is I said, Chad, come work for my campaign.
Yep.
And I think, and in fact, I was just having this conversation with someone else who's gearing up to launch a campaign, that Chad and I were way ahead of the time. And I'm okay saying that. That in 2018, to hire a person with a camera to follow you around as a candidate, and their sole job is to produce content. In 2018, that was not a thing that people were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And many people who were sort of in our inner circle thought it was a good idea, but I still don't think they fully understood it. And they were kind of like, wow, you're paying someone like a full-time salary to do that? And I was like, well, when you're a candidate, you can pay a media company in DC $4,000 a month to consult.
And that's on the cheap side.
On the cheap side. Or I could reinvest that money in someone who actually is here. And between the two of us, with my news background and your abilities, we can create content that actually moves the needle for us. And I think we of all the things we accomplished in 2018, the thing I feel most strongly about is that we had one of the best digital presences, whatever
Digital presence. Yep.
of any campaign, definitely in Alabama, but potentially nationally. We had a huge digital presence.
That is so valid that you bring that up. I worked at that time for Stars Entertainment, and I was doing commercials and editing and social media content. And Mallory asked me, will you move back to Alabama? Because I lived in Denver, Colorado at that time. Will you move back to Alabama to work on my campaign? And I said, if you win the primary, I'll move back immediately. She won the primary. I was home, I think like 2 weeks later, and immediately started the next day. And if there was one thing on your campaign that people recognized, they commented on, they might not have known all of your policies, they might not have been able to donate or really like see you on a debate stage. I think you had one or two debates at that point.
Well, I had one debate and I had another invitation to debate, but Mike Rogers didn't show up. So I just had a town hall.
I remember that. I have that on footage. Yep. And so, but people always commented about your social media videos. If they learned about your policy, odds are they saw it on social media. And so that was something that I think a lot of candidates at that time in Alabama also wanted to utilize from you.
Yeah.
Because whenever you would go to an event, you weren't necessarily top of the ticket, but even Walt Maddox, who was running for governor at that time, knew the strength of your digital presence online, and he knew it would benefit him. So I mean, you were ahead of the time on knowing that that's what we needed.
Yeah.
And I think that's what...
I'll just pat myself on the back for that. I might not have won that race. By God, we didn't run into a single person who had not said, oh, I saw your stuff on Facebook, or I saw you online.
Yeah. Yep. And so I think what we're seeing now in Alabama, at least, is a lack of, dare I say, innovation when it comes to reaching new voters, spreading a message. And so we bring up working on her campaign because we want to discuss how we got to this point in the state of Alabama with the Democratic Party.
Well, in the short term anyway.
Yes, in the short term. So we've had a super majority in Alabama since 2006. We're
feeling it, right?
We are feeling it. Yeah. And having a super majority of one party silences so many people for a multitude of reasons, but one being it really gets voters discouraged, unengaged. They get apathetic. They get apathetic. I'm going to edit that out, so there's no proof that I actually said that. But it's horrible. Democrats have not won a statewide race since 2006. I want that to sink in. So when we say statewide race, we mean governor, lieutenant governor, attorneys general, state representatives, state senators. We have had Democratic people win in Alabama. Terry Sewell, we have Shamari Figures, we had Doug Jones. They're federal officers. That's great. We can debate all day long about their effectiveness and
well, I mean, even Terry and Shamari are not statewide.
No.
Doug is the only one who's won anything, blanketed across the state, and that was by the hair of his chinny chin chin.
Yep. I mean,
by the slightest hair. And it was circumstantial. And I say that really appreciating Doug Jones and everything he's done. I don't mean that to be a slight. I just mean circumstantial opponent and still by the hair.
By the hair of his chin. I think it was less than 10,000 votes is what he won by.
And they worked their asses off on that race.
Yep. And that was 2017. And I think that was December of 2017. And even then, that was going into a considerably within the past 20 years of strong period for Democrats in Alabama.
Yeah.
And it was still that close circumstantially. And so to look back where we were in 2017 or where we were in 2017 to where we are now as a party in the state is just, it makes me sad.
Well, I also think though that it's a great starting point for this conversation because Doug's win energized people tremendously.
Yep.
So there were people who were like on the inside and working hard for Doug's campaign. People came from other places all around the country to help. And because he won, Democratic parties strengthened around the state.
Yep.
Democratic clubs strengthened around the state. And suddenly you had people who were willing to organize, create infrastructure, donate money, donate their time. Like people really were ready to get to work for 2018 because they saw in Doug that it was possible that Democrats could win. And so I think as a jumping off point, that's why when we talk about having viable candidates and good campaigns and people who are able to carry the torch for the party, that's why it's important, because those people are responsible for motivating and energizing the rest of the folks across the state who we need in order to make progress.
And I'm happy that you bring that up, because in the 2022 midterms, Democratic turnout in the state of Alabama was only 27%.
Yep. Oh, don't worry. I'm aware. I was running. I was running in a district that was winnable, by the way. It was one of the most winnable districts around our state.
What was the difference in 2018, running for Congress in 2018 to running in 2022? I know it's different races, different circumstances, but the support that you got, the energy that you received, all of it, the money.
Well, first I want to say in both campaigns, the state party was of zero help.
Yeah.
I will say in 2018, there was definitely a little bit more unity within the Democratic Party and Democratic clubs and everything across the state. I don't think it's news to anyone who is really ingrained in Alabama and specifically Alabama politics, but there are a lot of dividing factors among Democrats. And I think it's really important to note that I think there's a reason why there's a lot of divide among Democrats, and that's because we are the Big Ten. So Democrats have a lot of different coalitions, a lot of different people who fall under our umbrella. And because of that, there's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of folks who think they know the right way to reach the right people, and et cetera, et cetera. So I do think it takes a lot more massaging to bring unity to our party than it does for Republicans, when there's a lot more of a monolith taking place in the people who support their party and their policies. But all that to say, 2018 had a lot more unity. And because of that, I had a lot of support. I had a lot of support from those clubs and coalitions, even though I had a primary. And I worked really hard to garner that support from those clubs and coalitions, specifically some of the ones that were divided among racial lines. The person who I ran against in the primary was a Black woman. Mm-hmm. And I really had to prove that, truth be told, I was the better candidate. And I was. I feel strongly about that.
Yep.
But that was a part of, working through that in 2018. In 2022, I think the party, and just politically speaking in general, we are far more divided. We have far less desire to work together, and much had transpired with the Alabama State Democratic Party between 2018 and 2022.
I was going to bring that up. The party pretty much collapsed in 2018, 2019 after the elections, and it has not recovered since.
No. Well, I think that I called this out. I called this out at the end of the campaign.
I called it, I dubbed this the S-bomb heard around the world.
Yeah, I've said before, and I'll say it again, I'm not super proud of how I did it. And I'm not super proud of the moment that I did it.
I am.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
In hindsight, we live in a political time where way worse shit happens on a daily basis. But at the time, we had just lost, and we knew we were going to lose. That wasn't the question. But it kind of felt like we lost more than we should have because of the inner workings of people within the Democratic Party. And so I think the party collapsed because there's sort of this old guard of folks who think that they deserve to hold power. And I don't know what they think they have power over. We haven't won anything.
Yeah.
So, you've got Joe Reed and Randy Kelly and like these folks who
won't support you unless you cut them a check.
Won't support you unless you cut them a check, which, by the way, I have proof of.
Yep.
I was given a shakedown that I recorded.
And I was with you in that meeting. This is corroborated. This happened.
Yeah. So, and I still have it. I still have the recording on my phone where I was told basically, we will not support you. We'll remove your name from our sample ballots. And basically the machine, which I don't know how you have a machine if you're not winning anything, but I digress. the machine will discard you as a candidate if you don't cut us a check. And I basically said, well, then I guess we'll just have to see how this goes. Because I'm not cutting you a check.
The check was, I believe, in the $20,000 ballpark, which on a grassroots campaign,
that's a lot of money.
That's all the money.
And you know that when you're a candidate, and I was a candidate full time.
Yeah.
Like I quit my job. I was a news anchor. I couldn't be a news anchor and also be a candidate. So I got up every day and was at the office 8:30, started making phone calls, and I was making phone calls, calling people for support, which is money, until 2 or 3 in the afternoon when we would then leave to go to whatever event we were going to.
Yeah.
So I was working for that money. It wasn't like I was just like people were handing me $20,000 checks. I was sitting in an office every day with a fundraising person, going through lists, talking to people, reaching out to donors. You know, that's not easy.
No.
And to just expect candidates to hand you $20,000 with no plan of action, with no real outline for how you're going to get out the vote or help them.
Yeah.
Just ridiculous. But anyway, that's the old guard. And that old guard happens to be quite racially divided. And so I think part of the decline of the party in 2018 was that we had Doug Jones and sort of his crew of people that many would consider like the new era of Alabama Democrats, really trying to take hold of the party and use the infrastructure that Doug had created to bolster the party in the state. And then you've got pushback from the Joe Reids and Randy Kellys of the world. So huge dismantling lawsuit. Doug took it over, and then they basically planned a coup and took it back. And now here we are. They've taken it back, and we have
nothing to show for it. I'm really happy that you bring up money, because highlighting how successful, even though it was not winning wise a successful year, it was a successful year and a fundamental building block that could have been used to prepare for 2020 and 2022. It didn't happen. In 2022, the Alabama GOP raised $15.6 million. Democrats in Alabama raised $1 million.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what happens, right? When you've got a fractured party, you've got people who don't want to work together. You've got people who are unwilling to let go of quote unquote power. And I'm going to keep saying quote unquote power because, again, we don't have any power.
It's just perceived power.
It's perceived power. You're the head of a party that's not winning anything. You haven't won anything. You haven't raised any money. You have no power. You just think you do? ? So I think that's what happens, right? You don't have the infrastructure and the coalitions necessary to raise money. And I have to say, kudos to Representative Anthony Daniels, who basically, being the House Minority Leader, saw that the party was not going to help us.
Yeah.
It was not going to help at least state house candidates. And that's who...
In 2022.
And that's who, Anthony needed people to work with, or Representative Daniels needed people to work with. So he said, well, I need people on my bench. I need people on my team. He created his own fundraising mechanism, and he targeted, I think he was working with 4, maybe 5 campaigns, mine being one of them, winnable races across the state. And he just focused his energy there. And we weren't as successful as I think all of us thought we were going to be based on turnout and all of these things. But the fact that he said if the party's not going to do what they need to do, they're not going to raise the money that they need to raise to help the candidates in the way that they need to be helped, I'm just going to do it over here, and I'm going to focus my energy on these 5 races that I think we can win and see if we can't add somebody to our bench. And luckily, he did pick up a seat in Maryland Lands. Representative Lands came from that like coalition of people that he was working with. But the ability to raise money for the party is so important when it comes to encouraging people to run for office.
And let me tell you something. Maryland Lands is who you want representing you, because you can have policy disagreements, but she cares. And I've had no interactions with her other than your baby shower a few weeks ago. Mallory will have had 2 baby showers, and I went to your first one.
Very lucky.
She was going around making sure cups were filled, plates were thrown away. If you want more food, stay seated. And I'll get it for you. Her leadership is it's who you should aspire to look up to and to be, and she puts it on display, whether she is in public or at a private event or there for family or friends. And I really appreciated that. And that made such a mark. And I'm really happy that she is serving your community in Huntsville.
Me too. She is exactly who you think she is when you interact with her. And super grateful she was a part of the group of women who hosted that shower. And that's just who she is, right?
Yeah.
She's a woman of faith. That's very important to her. But she's also I don't know her credentials exactly, but she's a licensed counselor or therapist or something in that realm. She works with people on their mental health. So that's something that's really important to her. And she is another candidate who shared her abortion story, her necessary abortion story. And that, come to find out, was one of the things that really put her over the edge where we live. And so Anthony's decision to sort of circumvent the party, circumvent the chaos, create some infrastructure, raise money on his own, proved to work.
I want to speak to the money again and continue this thought, this line of thought, because money, and because on my TikTok thread, it seemed that there was such a misconception about money in campaigns. I think we can separate big money, corporations, super PACs. We can want that out of our campaigns, out of our election cycles. We can want Citizens United to be overturned, but still recognize that there is a need for money in campaigns.
Absolutely. I think people need to stop thinking about campaigns as this fun thing that people kind of like do on the side, right? Campaigns are a business.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Starting the campaign is the equivalent of starting a business. It's like having a startup company, one that you have to ramp up in about 30 days.
Yeah.
Maybe less, especially if you're in an incredibly competitive district, or you know that like you need to be first out of the gate so that you don't have too much competition. Like there's a lot of strategy that goes into when to launch a campaign. But when I tell you it is, you know, it's filing papers and paying for that. It's an EIN number, it's bank accounts, it's hiring people, it's figuring out who your consultants are, and then it's figuring out how to keep the money coming in so that you can run that operation. And that's just baseline. And I mean, we could get into the actual numbers of what that costs,
and I have it.
But like, as you know, that's baseline. And then that's just to get it off the ground, to have people help you figure out how you're going to navigate and what your strategy should be and how you're going to reach people. And then you have a field organizing team. People don't organize in the field for free. You have to pay people to do that. Then you have a communications team. Then you have a digital firm. Then you have, if you're like me, you have somebody that you hire to be on the ground to do your content. You've got a executive assistant. I mean, depending on the level of campaign that you're at, you're running a business with sometimes 12 to 20 employees.
Yep.
And so the money is important for the operation. But to me, it speaks to a deeper, like, if you're going to be a representative of other people and you're going to walk the halls of Congress or the Senate and have any understanding of what the average business owner is going through or the average family is going through, what do things cost? How much money are people making? How much money do they need to make in order to survive? The ability to be a candidate that can put together a viable campaign shows me that you have some of the skills that will be necessary in order to be a good representative.
Yes. Yes. And I did crunch those numbers, and I want to talk about them a little bit because I think there needs to be clarity and visibility into what it takes. Baseline, what you need to be bringing in a month just to be able to afford the bare necessities of a campaign. So this is if you're running for governor. So statewide office, governor. I'm on a Tommy Tuberville kick right now. So this is, if anyone's wanting to run against Tommy Tuberville, what they need to be able to do in order to at least have a shot.
Yeah. I mean, unless they're like the second coming of Christ and they can just galvanize people with no money and no organizing, but that's just not reality.
So you have a campaign manager. That's going to be about $7,500 a month before taxes.
Yep.
So $7,500 a month for them. You have a comms director. That's going to be somewhere in the realm of $5,000 to $6,000. You have usually a field director, field organizer, it's someone in that realm. That's going to be another $6,000 a month before taxes. Again, mind you, you also have to pay taxes. You're paying healthcare for people, or you're adding that into their salary. So that's your campaign employee payroll. You also are paying for.
And that's if you only have those three employees.
That's
just like
bare
minimum.
Bare just to be able to do something. That's not even including your palm cards, your
signs,
billboards, ads, whatever. So you have your software and your technology. So how you know where the Democrats live, where you're going to target your volunteers, the doors you're going to knock, the people who have voted in previous elections that you want to make sure that they're voting in this one. That's going to be anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 a month for that software. That's the voter file.
Yeah,
that's
vote builder, all those kinds of things.
A CRM, which is your email management, where you're keeping your contacts, all that kind of stuff. Then you have your field basics. So that's how many volunteers that you want to have on that voter profile in order to have access to people's addresses and phone numbers, your signs, your gas on the weekends to get to and from events, literature. That's another about $1,500 to $3,000 a month, conservative in that number if it's a statewide race. And then you have an office. You have things you have to file. Usually that's probably going to be between $6,000 and $8,000 a month, depending on the size.
Or especially if you're statewide, you might have multiple offices.
Yes. So you're looking at about $46,000 a month on a shoestring budget in order to have a fighting chance. So if you're going to run for office and have a chance against an established supermajority candidate, you have to be able to. And this isn't you have to be able to raise $46,000 a month.
You brought it up, but the thing that you didn't even, that's not even talking about making ads. A single commercial can run a candidate up to $30,000 just to film. And then you have to place that ad, which can be another $100,000 to $150,000. Then you're talking about that's just one ad, like a true commercial, the ones that you see on your TV.
Yep.
All of the digital advertising that takes place, all of that. And then one thing that you didn't mention is you have to pay somebody to do your compliance.
Yeah.
You have to pay somebody who understands the
how to file your finances, your donations, making sure that you're legally not going to get in trouble for
or pay a fine.
Yeah,
and those have to be filed every month. And then as you get closer to the campaign or closer to the election, they have to be filed every week. And then the week of the election, they have to be filed every day. Like you have to pay somebody to do all of that too.
They're meticulous. That's not something
and
you can
they will come after you.
And they have.
Yeah, they have.
And they have. So anyways, that's why I bring up money, because you have to be able to raise at least $46,000 to $50,000 a month, which is why name recognition is so important, why infrastructure is so important, because you have to be able to have the people around the state, the support, the ability to show that you are capable of putting up that fight and raising that money and fighting for your people that you're asking for their vote.
It requires a level of work ethic that I just don't even know that I knew was possible until I ran in 2018. And that's coming from somebody who traveled the country as a nationwide ambassador for the Miss America organization, where I felt like I was dying on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I was so tired. So the campaign work ethic that it takes in order to run a federal race or a statewide race, like it is 6 a.m. to midnight every day for a year.
Oh my God. I put 40,000 miles on my car driving your district. And I was up at 6 a.m. to be in the office by 7 a.m. And I did not get home till like 11 p.m. every single night. Yeah. And it was worth it. So, no complaints.
No complaints.
You have to be able to do it.
I think people need to understand, like, it's not just, you need to raise money. It's like you have to either be the person or surround yourself with people who have the creativity and the work ethic to actually help you figure out how you're going to raise that money.
Yeah.
And it's not just call time. It's not just digital ads, and it's not just emails. It's figuring out what cities can you go to where people will be sympathetic to the fact that you're a candidate in Alabama,
I agree, Pepper.
We've brought Pepper into the fold.
Being sympathetic.
Yeah, you have to have the wherewithal to find the connections that you need in other cities and be able to raise money in places where people are sympathetic to candidates in Alabama who want to help us. Yeah, so like if you're going to be a candidate, you can't just say I'm going to put my name on the ballot and I'm going to do it and people are going to support me. You have really got to be a business owner and you've got to have the strategic mindset to understand who to hire, what you need to do to move the needle from point A to point B. And there are so many working parts. And some people might argue with that and say like, that's why you have a good campaign manager. But as somebody who's hired campaign managers, I can let you know that they are a dime a dozen, especially in Alabama.
Yep.
You have to have some sense of what you're doing and where you want to go, because if they're a good campaign manager, chances are they're taken.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the importance of having colorful and vibrant primaries, why we need to be paying attention to local races, and why that 27% voter turnout on the Democratic side
is abysmal.
Yes. We'll be right back. And we're back, and we're going to talk about competitive primaries and why they matter and why they're important. So one thing that I really wanted to highlight in this episode with you is the importance of a competitive primary, not just for Democrats, but for Republicans, because one thing that I think we're seeing a lot of these days, not just unique to Alabama, but in a lot of other states, are personalities getting elected, but they're not able to speak to any policy or issue or really any set of values or beliefs. And as you know, you've been through it, the primary process forces candidates to have to learn about issues, about their community, because if you don't know, you're going to be called out on it so quick. You won't be able to go on a debate stage. And I know debates are nowadays not really happening, but historically,
yeah,
you have to be able to learn and be informed and understand what the community is going through in order to have a fighting chance at being elected. So primaries are very, very important. And I'm just curious from your perspective, having run for office twice, what your viewpoints on having a competitive primary, what that looks like and what that means to you.
Well, I understand, especially in Alabama, that there are people who are like, forget a primary. We just need somebody to run. We need somebody on the ticket. And I think that that's the base minimum that we should be aspiring to. And then on top of that, we should be aspiring to have at least 2 people in a primary so that voters have an option. Right now, we have, as you've mentioned, we've got people who are stepping into roles to represent people who have no desire to actually represent people. And we've forgotten that in order to be a congressperson or a senator, your main concern should be your constituents. You have to be thinking about the people that you represent and not what you can personally gain, not what your business can gain. And so to me, primaries force you to go out and build coalitions faster. You have to go find those groups that are within your party and beyond. And you've got to build the relationships necessary with them to garner their support. And in doing so, you also have to listen to them. What are their needs? How can you help them as their representative? When I was running for Congress and I had a primary and we had a primary debate, it forced me to sit down and truly understand the landscape of healthcare, education, the landscape of our environmental issues in Alabama. We would sit at a table in a room with, white paper all the way around the wall. And we brought in people who knew more than me.
Business owners, doctors, military personnel, everyone.
Yeah. And so I would set up times for people to come in who had the time and were willing to discuss what they were seeing in their field. And so it really is an important part of the process in order for your candidate to be the best candidate.
Yeah.
And then if you've gone through that in the primary, not only have you had to build the infrastructure of your campaign, you've had to make your case pretty early to your own party and your own, sort of coalition of people, but you've also really strengthened your knowledge and you're putting yourself in a position to be a better advocate for the constituents of the district. And you're putting yourself in a better position to debate the policies, or sometimes not even policies, of the other party.
And all of that is such a good point, because I've seen it across the board in many states. I've seen it in the TikTok comment section, people swearing allegiance already to candidates who I have seen them not be able to answer questions as it relates to women's rights. They don't have a stance on LGBTQ plus issues. And those are all things that if we are going to have a Democratic nominee for the top position at the state level, they need to be able to answer those things. And I'm not willing or ready at this point to pledge allegiance to any candidate if they can't answer those questions. I'd like to see the field broadened so we can make sure that whoever is elected, whoever is the nominee, can be able to answer to those issues. It's really important. And I think in hindsight, people will look back and go, oh, you know what? I'm actually grateful we had someone who was advocating for my rights and my ability to access healthcare. Never will that be a bad thing.
No, and I think what's really kind of devastating in a place like Alabama is that there are so many people here who are still operating under sort of old school political thought, I guess. You've got people here who will say things to you as a candidate like, don't talk about the LGBTQ community, even though we have a huge LGBTQ population in the state of Alabama and their rights are under attack and they need people to advocate for them. And also, we don't change the conversation around those topics unless we have viable candidates out there making the case for why the other side's commentary is absolutely asinine.
Yeah.
So when you consider, the issues with the LGBTQ community or trans people or women's rights, if you've got a bunch of candidates who are afraid to say anything about those topics, then the only message that Alabamians are getting is the other side.
Exactly.
They're not getting any counter messaging to that, especially if we don't have any infrastructure or mechanisms from the party running ads or countering those horrendous commercials that we saw from the Trump campaign. Like, those things are important. And so when I was running in 2022, I was told to stop talking about the LGBTQ community. I was told to get off TikTok. There's just like this old school of thought here that I think is hindering us from, first of all, inviting candidates into the fold, and second of all, supporting candidates and being their most authentic selves. And if we've got candidates on the left right now who aren't willing to talk about women's rights or the LGBTQ community, then they shouldn't
be running. They should not be running. They should not be asking for people's donations for their money.
Maybe go ahead and get those 5,000 signatures for an independent ticket, because if you're a Democrat, you need to be able to support the big tent.
Yes. And so the takeaway here is a strong competitive primary for Democrats strengthens the Republicans, and the same goes for the other side. A strong competitive Republican primary process only strengthens the Democratic side when we have the infrastructure, the support, and the candidates to be able to counter that messaging. Super important. We talked about in the first half of the episode how only 27% of registered Democrats in Alabama turned out to vote in 2022. And again, we can attribute it to a lot of things, but one of the things being having a supermajority silences the other side. It makes people not want to get involved. They don't pay attention. They think, well, this is the way things are, so we're not going to put as much energy into the political process as we would if it was, say, a purplish state. We can't allow that, and we can't have that, because there are things on the ticket that people have to be aware of, like the Public Service Commission, something that I've talked about a lot on social media in the past few weeks that a lot of people were not aware of, but also a lot of people were aware of, but they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to mobilize or to organize or to like focus their energy into changing this. Is the Public Service Commission. They set the rates and the prices for our utilities. There were thousands of comments on my TikTok of people. It was literally a thread. Just a few people started posting their power bills for the past month, and it took off, and everyone was posting their power bills. Multiple people were paying over $700 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment.
That is crazy talk.
Insane. And they're only going to go up because they've raised the rates over the next like few years to in order to pay for these big plants to power some like AI or whatever industries here in Alabama.
AI is going to be a huge problem.
That's going to be a whole nother episode. But the moral of the story is when we don't have Democrats running for positions like the Public Service Commission, they have a blank check to do whatever they want.
Because there's no counter to what but that's every office.
Yeah.
You know, when you consider that we have a supermajority, we have Democrats who fight tooth and nail sometimes, but at the end of the day, we have a supermajority. They're there most of the time for show.
Yes.
There's just truly not that much they can do. We do have some Democrats, Maryland Lands being one of them, who've passed legislation and who've been able to work across the aisle to get some things done. Philip Ensler, like there are people who have had some successful pieces of legislation that are Democrats. But let's be honest, if there's something that they're up against, it's very difficult.
Yes.
Very difficult.
It's very difficult. And I bring up the Public Service Commission because it's a lower ticket office, but it impacts people daily.
Yeah, and drastically.
It quite literally is a quality of life issue. And a lot of times in a place like Alabama, it's life or death because you live in an apartment because you can't afford anything because your bills are so high, or you can't afford a newer build that's energy efficient, and it gets 98 degrees in there.
Well, and also when your power bill changes that drastically, you lose the ability to do things like save money.
Or even plan for a power bill like that. And then your power is at risk of being shut off. So that's why I bring up the Public Service Commission. I want to know, in your opinion, with everything we've talked about, with everything we've seen, with everything that you've experienced on the campaign trails, like, what should we do next? What should the next move be? And I know I did not prep Mallory with these questions beforehand, other than just general talking points. So she did not see me asking this question, but she's someone who I would follow her lead any damn day. And so if she says this should be the next move, it's what I think we should all pay attention to. Seriously.
Well, I think there are two options for people. I think right now, as we have discussed, the Democratic Party in Alabama really lacks the infrastructure that it needs in order for us to make some meaningful change. And until we have new leadership, I'm not so sure that is the best place for us to put our energy. However, wherever you live, whether that's Alabama or elsewhere, you likely have a Democratic club or organization in your county. And even though they are usually affiliated with your state party, they are typically people who are doing good work. So if you can get involved in your local county party or county club and tap into what they need for the 2026 cycle and beyond, that's a great place to start. If you want to volunteer to make this world a better place, you don't have to knock on doors. You don't have to make phone calls, although those things are important and helpful. There are plenty of ways that you can help campaigns and candidates. One thing I think people forget about is that candidates need like personal help.
Yeah.
So if you're a person who loves to cook and you find a candidate that you love, you can say, listen, I'm not really interested in knocking on doors, but I can support you and your campaign by making you 10 frozen meals for you and your family so you guys don't have to worry about dinner. Like there are ways that are creative to help this process move along.
But to that point, that's really important because that saves the campaign money and can put that money elsewhere.
Well,
so
also, like, you gotta think,
a big thing.
When I was running both times, I was still single. I had no kids. Like I didn't have a husband. So whatever I did and whatever I ate didn't matter. But one of the reasons that we lack viable candidates, and specifically women, is because they don't have the help that they need with their kids, with their needs at home, et cetera. So I just wanted to emphasize that there's a lot of ways to help campaigns and candidates. We've got a lot of people who are gearing up to run in 2026 and beyond. So if you find a candidate that you are like, I love that person, even if you're far away, there's probably a way that you can help them that might not be financial or making phone calls. That's one thing. The other thing is that there are so many issues in this country that so many of us care about. And a lot of organizations that are issue-based, for instance, the LGBTQ community or women's rights, or maybe if you're in Alabama Yellow Fund, like there are so many organizations out there that are doing work in that one specific area. So if you feel passionately about one specific thing, a great way to get yourself involved is to just volunteer for that one issue. So if you don't really want to be a part of the political process or candidates or any of that stuff, find that issue that you care about and get involved with an organization that's doing work, because chances are they're lobbying, they're fundraising for that issue. They're helping people on that issue. And all of that feeds into the politics of it all in one way or another.
The moral of the story is we do need an organized Democratic Party, but there are other ways and outlets where we can still make an impact by getting involved and have a fighting chance even without that organized Democratic Party.
Absolutely. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
And we all have a lot of power. We just harness it.
I think right now it's really hard to see that we have that power.
It can be. The times that we're living in are extremely depressing. But I have to have faith that it won't always be this way, especially as I get ready to bring a child into the world.
Oh my God. Well, on that note, Mallory, I end all episodes, as you know, by asking my guests what they're not wrong about. So Mallory, for the second time on He's Not Wrong, what are you not wrong about?
I'm not wrong about the fact that Charlie Kirk was a racist and a bigot. And while no one deserves to die by gun violence, the irony is not lost on me.
Can I piggyback on that?
Sure. What are we not wrong? What are we collectively not wrong about?
What are we collectively not wrong about? I'm not wrong that it is okay, as you saw the video that I reposted on TikTok and you put it on your Instagram story, to not feel bad about what happened. We can feel sorry for his kids. We can feel sorry for his wife. We can wish what happened on no one. We can wish that this never happens to anyone. It's not lost on me that the work that we have been doing for years has been to protect people from this happening, so Charlie and people who we do disagree with can go out and spew hate, regardless of if we agree with it or not, without the threat of violence.
Yep.
He literally hated my community.
Yep.
Hated my community.
And actively galvanized people to join him in that.
Yeah,
that's the part that I'm not like. That's the part that I don't see how other people don't see. You don't spend your life galvanizing people against Black people, against women, against the LGBTQ community, spewing awful rhetoric and hatred towards those people, and then exalt a man for being some type of man of faith and Christian values. Like, I'm sorry.
No, he made a statement not too long ago about how we should do to trans people what we used to do in the 50s and 60s to them. And I don't know if a lot of people listening have an accurate history of what happened to the LGBTQ community in the 50s and 60s, but it wasn't cute.
Yeah.
And we know what he was meaning when he said that. So I'm not sad. As he said, he was not an empathetic person. I don't feel empathy for the situation, but I don't think he deserved what happened. I don't think anyone deserves gun violence, but this is my commitment to everyone listening and you as my witness that I will continue to fight for candidates who actively work towards preventing gun violence.
Yep.
So what happened to Charlie does not happen to anyone else, because I don't care what your beliefs are. No one is deserving of dying by gun violence. And it's time that we put the human life in higher regard than inanimate objects.
Yeah. Well, and as we were mentioning, if people are looking for a way to get involved in that particular issue, there are several organizations out there, but Moms Demand Action is one of them. You don't actually have to be a mom to be a part of Moms Demand Action. And then Sandy Hook Promise is another one.
Yep.
I mean, there are countless organizations that are lobbying for our rights and lobbying to ensure that, our kids can go to school and remain safe. And if you want to participate, you certainly have avenues to do so.
Mallory, I love you. Thank you for coming on today.
Oh my God, I love you more.
Not possible. No, we're not wrong. We're never wrong. If y'all want to call in and leave a voice message about what you're not wrong about, you can call 205-538-3202, or you can leave me, a voice message on my Instagram DMs at He's Not Wrong Podcast on Instagram. Again, that phone number is 205-538-3202. Leave me a voice message and I'll feature it on a solo podcast episode. And until next time, bye.